Hello, happy Monday, everybody. Hello, hello. Already in, Richard. Fantastic. It's just me and you at the minute. We'll wait for everyone else to pop in. Good afternoon, everyone. How are we all? Hope everyone's well. It's a lovely day out there again today. It's a bit rainy this morning. I went for a run in the rain, which was a big deal because normally raining would be enough to stop me running at all. But I went in there and I got it done. So yeah, so feeling very sort of self-righteous today now. We're all back on the Dippy mug today. This is, I think, was the very first mug I ever used. It's kind of my perfect mug for me, really. So we're back to Mondays now. I slightly wrongly told you yesterday I'd be doing secret or kind of the history behind some like weird London names today. I'm totally not. I got that wrong. I had no idea. Richard, who's guesting today, messaged me afterwards like, "Am I not on tomorrow?" I'm like, "Oh no, you are. I'm just being an idiot." So that's tomorrow. We're going to be doing sort of the history behind some of the really weird names. Yeah, in London. Oh, hi from a bathroom floor trying to lay a vinyl floor. I tell you what, I listened to a couple of guides doing different sort of live stuff yesterday while trying to haul up my decking, and I've wrenched my shoulder. I've completely, it's just gone very wrong, but the decking's up, so that's all good. Getting it all done, So welcome. Oh, lovely. We've got Canada in this morning. Hi, guys. Hello, hello. Hi, Katie. Nice to see you all. Well, today it's Monarch Mondays, so I put up a little poll last week asking, did we want to skip ahead to the kind of sexy monarchs? I mean, that's we're kind of playing fast and loose with the word sexy there. Or do we carry on in the normal chronological order? And the overwhelming response was chronological, so that's what we're doing. So we're going to keep tootling along, and we're going to be talking about today William II, or William Rufus, and King Henry I. Now, I'm going to invite Richard to come and join me. Let me just find him. So this is Richard, who came on and did with the Confessor with us. It was great. So I've invited him back. I say we, it's me. I've invited him back to come and talk about the next two monarchs. And this is quite an interesting thing. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good.
Good.
I was a little bit sunburnt yesterday.
You got a bit sunburnt? Oh my goodness.
Were you a little bit glowing?
Were you out in the garden?
In the garden, of course, nowhere else.
Good. Yeah, must play by the rules. Well, it's really interesting because we sort of thought, were we going to jump ahead, didn't we? And I was kind of expecting everyone to say, yeah, no, take us to the kings and queens that we know and all of that. But everyone said, no, actually, keep going chronologically, which is kind of fun because there's a whole swathe of kings and queens coming up that people don't know that, well, mainly kings, actually, that people don't know that much about. And
I think that's right. And you said earlier on, people were asked, should we go on to the sexy ones? But actually, the ones that we're going to talk about today, they are sexy in their own way. They may not quite have the cachet of a Henry VIII or a Charles II, but nevertheless,
good, frankly,
Well, but these two are, yes, okay, they're slightly obscure because they are. There's, right at the beginning of the medieval period, and we don't really hear very much about them. But I like both of these two, and I've enjoyed rereading up on both of them, really. So, should we crack on? Should we start?
Yes, well, let's just recap from where we left off last week, which was me leaving it after the death of William the Conqueror, who is obviously a very big name in British history. We looked at the Battle of Hastings. I don't know if you saw it, Richard, but we looked at the Battle of Hastings.
Yes, we did.
We looked at both Harold and William and the kind of the big old punch-up that happened with the Battle of Hastings and kind of where that left England. And I did mention that, William had children, but he did not gift England to the firstborn. And normally we're used to this thing of, the firstborn child becomes the monarch. But
primogeniture, indeed.
But actually, in this case, early on, they didn't just have England; they had France as well, and France was kind of considered the plum role. So the chap we're going to start talking about today, William Rufus, wasn't the firstborn. He wasn't even the secondborn, was he?
No, he wasn't. In fact, he was number 3 on the list. Actually, in fact, both of whom we're going to talk about today are both sons of the Conqueror.
Yeah.
So you're right when you say that the firstborn didn't get England. He got what was viewed by the Conqueror as being the top prize, which was the Dukedom of Normandy. So,
I mean, yeah.
well, Dukedom of Normandy was, a pretty big prize, and although he was a conqueror of England, England was seen as being the second most important, which is, quite interesting from this
How
perspective.
very dare they? How very dare they?
Well, indeed. So, as we mentioned, William is in fact the third son. He's the third son, and he gets the Kingdom of England. So, and there are, when we talk about William II, the first thing that we always talk about is his name, William Rufus. So there's a little bit of a discussion here about, is that to do with the colour of his hair? Might be. In fact, I think we've got a little picture of him somewhere, Alex.
No, I think we do. I'm slightly confused now because you sent me two of the same one, and I'm not 100% sure.
Listen, I'll tell you if it's the right one. There we go. I think that's Henry I.
I think it might be. But check out how similar they look.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Interestingly, actually, you're just slightly to the side there, but it looks like he's got a smartphone in his left hand.
It's an iPhone, yeah. It's a really, really old iPhone.
Weirdly,
very, very slow operating system. Didn't work very well.
So, Rufus, red hair probably, or ruddy complexion. That's the other characteristic that's often given to the conqueror. But there are other things that we don't hear so much about, and I think we probably should hear more about this. It is quite likely, and I'm calling it now, William Rufus, almost certainly the first gay king of England. And we've got some fantastic first-hand sources that come down to us, particularly from a monk working in that beautiful market town in the West Country, Malmesbury, home of Dyson.
Beautiful.
But also, fantastic church there. Beautiful.
Very linked to witchcraft as well, Malmesbury. Very strongly linked to witchcraft. But that's
absolutely fantastic amount of stuff going on at Malmesbury. If you've never been, once we get out of the COVID nightmare, get down to Malmesbury. It is a beautiful place. Fantastic church there. And at the Abbey, contemporary or a little bit after Rufus was a man called William of Malmesbury, and he writes quite a lot about the early kings, and he's very interesting, and he talks about the court of William Rufus, and he tells us really that it's quite a lot of flamboyant goings on within the court. I've got this lovely little quote that I just wanted to read to you. He says, he talks about William getting hold of lots of cash, and the way that William gets hold of cash is quite a clever strategy, really. He gets hold. When a bishop dies, rather than appointing a bishop straight away, what he does is he delays, and he just grabs all of the income, all of the cash that's coming into that particular bishop.
I like his style.
Abbey. Hey, great way to do it. And
right.
Really fat on that. The most famous person that he does this to is Anselm, Archbishop of Canterbury, who he falls out with, and he basically Anselm is sent off into exile, but that doesn't stop Rufus grabbing all of the spoils that come with Canterbury, and he gets himself fairly wealthy. So back to Malmesbury.
There's history of grabbing wealth and sort of filthy lucre from churches and things like that, isn't there? We'll see that a few times in the story of the kings and queens. But there's a lot of wealth to be had if you know where to look and how to get your hands on it.
It is a continual theme, and as we know, when we get up to Henry VIII, no better example of nicking from the church, really,
absolutely,
on a grand scale. But let's come back to Malmesbury, and he talks about, so what is William Rufus spending all his cash on? Well, the answer appears to be partying, partying quite hard in the court. And he gives us this great quote. He talks about the parties that are being held by Rufus, and he says these parties, they were hateful to God and man. And further, he goes on, he says, young men are encouraged to rival women in delicacy of person, to mince their gait, and to walk with loose gestures and half naked.
How very dare they? Sounds wonderful.
Well, there you go. It's all going on. So, goodness me, it's clear that William is out there, really. William, let's just get the facts in. He never marries, and he has no children.
Yeah.
So, an indication, nothing confirmed there, but I think William of Malmesbury is is not mincing his words there. He's telling us what he thinks is going on.
No, and there are quite a lot of sort of eyewitness accounts at the time, aren't they? Talking about, sort of goings on and things like that, and the sort of thing that, now obviously wouldn't be an issue at all, but back then was really quite shocking. And there's a lot of accounts of, of him being basically gay, but not really.
Yeah,
and if that makes sense.
But allowed, nobody's going to stand up to him, and nobody does stand up to him, and this continues in plain sight, which again I think is quite surprising looking at it from this distance. Nevertheless, that is what happens, and really, what William, not necessarily because of his sexuality, but because of his strategy of stealing and behaving badly pretty much towards everyone. He manages to alienate almost everybody.
I mean, that'll happen if you take all their cash, frankly. I've tried, but it doesn't go down well.
Exactly, and we should point out that although William of Malmesbury is a fantastic source for us, don't forget William of Malmesbury is part of the church who is effectively at odds with William, so he's going to give William a bad press pretty much whatever happens.
Yeah, he's got an axe to grind, hasn't he? Definitely.
He has got an axe to grind. So let's move on quickly, because let's get to the most famous thing about Rufus is his death.
Yes. Now this is a very kind of no. I think somebody did ask at one point, could we do a session on kind of weird deaths and kind of crazy stuff that happened? And I mean, we absolutely can, and I'll pop it on the list. But I mean, we're starting here, really, aren't we?
Oh, fantastic! And of course, the best book for this is The Death of Kings. One of the most
very good
books.
book.
In fact, hold on a second. Bizarrely, here it is. It's going to be upside down, isn't it? There we are, The Death of Kings. Upside down, Death of Kings.
Remember to pop a link to that on the website as well.
Yeah, fantastic book. And in fact, we're lucky today because following this theme, both William and later Henry, as we'll hear, die slightly odd deaths. So let's go and do William first. He's out hunting. He's in the New Forest. And I think we've got a picture of the stone there, Alex. There we go. This is the famous Rufus stone. You can go and see that in the New Forest today, and you can probably read it, but it effectively tells the story that Rufus is out hunting with Sir Walter Tyrrell. Tyrrell shoots at a stag. It's probably a crossbow rather than a longbow, crossbow bolt, which is alleged to have glanced off a tree and hit Rufus. Well, I think most historians are now saying a likely story. Probably didn't happen like that at all.
And it should be said that hunting was not a safe sport.
Totally.
It was something that obviously the king did a lot, but it was not a safe sport. You're charging around the forest after wild animals, often on horseback.
Absolutely right.
Bows and arrows. So there's
and crossbows.
To be an accident, but there's also the understanding that his brother Henry, who we will come to, kind of wanted that through.
Well, we'll get there very quickly because, indeed, Henry is present at this hunt and we're now deeply into the conspiracy theory realm. Henry's there. Probably not. He's there and he's present, and the death of Rufus is quick. The shot, whoever it comes from, is accurate. It probably gets through his chest, and he's dead pretty quickly.
Yeah, straight to the lung, they said, is what they reckon, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Rufus's body is fairly unceremoniously chucked onto a cart, and he ends up being buried here. This is Winchester Cathedral. Thanks, Alex, for sticking that up. So that's prominent. Now, the last time I went to Winchester, and you might know better than me, Alex, the last time I went to, that sign saying William Rufus was gone, was not there. And in fact, there was nothing to indicate that it was Rufus's tomb at all.
Yeah, I haven't been there in a little while, but I remember the last time I was there, he's sort of in that area where there's a whole collection of kings and queens, and they sort of had a bit of a body dump at one point, and then they had to kind of sort all the bones out.
Yeah, the famous mortuary chest.
The mortuary chest, that's the word I couldn't think of. And yeah, and to my understanding, they've got bits of him there, but I think his head's gone, but I think they've definitely got a couple of legs of it. So there's like bits of him, but not really the whole thing. And I have to say, I don't remember whether or not the sign was there when I was last there.
Yeah, so you're right. They did recently do some archaeology around the contents of the mortuary chests, and there was something about not being entirely clear who was in which chest, and they were all mixed together.
I love that. It's just sort of,
Well,
it
makes it
just chuck
interesting,
them in
doesn't it?
together, and then at some point someone goes, yeah, we kind of should know who's where.
Yeah, well, maybe
Sorting
not.
them out. I love
Anyway, I think traditionally this is given us where Rufus lies, so, let's go with that.
Yeah.
But we're in Winchester Cathedral, and that's important because the other person that hot-foots it to Winchester is William's brother, Henry. Here he is.
Ah!
Henry the First. Now, so we've already talked about the fact that these two are brothers, and Henry gets the name Beauclerk or Beauclerk. He's learned, he's educated. He's the younger son of the Conqueror.
Yeah, the youngest of four, isn't he? So given that he's the fourth in line.
So we've missed out, the ones that we've missed out are the eldest, Robert, who becomes Duke of Normandy, and then there is another brother, Richard, who dies early on, and he doesn't really get to play a part in this scrabble when the Conqueror dies. Robert is important, so it's worth mentioning him now, because he decides that his best job is to go off on the Crusades, to go off on the First Crusade, and he effectively pawns Normandy to Rufus. So when Rufus dies, Henry Beauclerk has got an opportunity here to really scoop up not only England, but much of France as well, much of Norman France, which he does. And indeed, when Robert comes back from the Crusades some years later, we see a little hard edge to Henry. Henry is not happy at all. He's not going to accept Robert as being a potential threat to him, and Robert is thrown eventually into Cardiff Castle, where he's incarcerated until he dies. So that is some kind of sibling rivalry taken to extremes. Yeah. Absolutely. So a little bit more about Henry. Let's just give you the brief facts. Born October 1068. When the Conqueror invades in 1066, within a couple of the years, he's got trouble in the north. The nobility, the aristocracy, the old aristocracy in the north of England is not paying loyalty to William, and so he does this thing, he engages this thing called the harrying of the north. Which
we did mention briefly last week at the end of the chat, where he sort of laid waste to everything.
That's right.
Slaughtered livestock and people and burned everything down. And was,
Yes, he does. And while he's there, he takes his wife with him, and he takes his pregnant wife to Selby in Yorkshire. And that is where she gives birth to Henry I in 1068. So he's born in the midst of the harrying of the north, which I think is quite interesting to know.
Crazy, really.
Yeah. So we've already heard that Henry's present when Rufus dies. He hot-foots it to Winchester. He does this thing of grabbing the royal treasure, the treasure that is present at Winchester, stored at Winchester.
There's definitely a theme here amongst the brothers of grabbing whatever they want.
Yeah, they do this anyway. But within 3 days, in fact, Henry is in Westminster Abbey getting crowned, and he becomes Henry I. So we've already heard about his kind of ruthless streak, but he's even tougher than that. So you've got a picture, I think, of some coins, Alex.
We do.
There we go. So you can see these are pretty misshapen.
One of them's great. It's got my face on it.
So the important one is the one that we can see, because that is Henry I.
Hey!
Well, of course, you're important as well, Alex. But the thing to see is the shape of these coins. Can you see that they've been worn over the years, but actually they've been cut in various places. They've been debased. And this is a big problem for Henry, because the economy, when he comes to the throne, is struggling a little bit. There's a shortage of money, and what people are doing is that they are snipping away at the edges of silver coins to melt them down, and the coinage gets debased and debased and debased. This is a problem for Henry, so he decides to take unbelievably severe action against the moneyers, the people that are producing the money in the mint, the moneyers. He says, right, I'm not having this anymore. We are going to stop this debasement of the coinage. And as a warning, all the moneyers, I'm going to have them down in Winchester. They're all collected together, a number of men. They're brought down to Winchester, and their right hands are cut off. And if that wasn't enough to make them think, well, maybe we should do what he says, he castrates them too. So we are in pretty severe...
I mean, that's really taking punishment to an nth degree, isn't it?
It is, and it's partially successful, because the money does increase in its value. He does get this is mainly to do. There's a shortage of silver. There's a shortage of supply of silver during Henry I's reign. Anyway, let's move on. We could get sucked into a numismatic vortex, which I don't want to do too much. But I just want to move on to really the important stuff as we go on, as is important with all of the kings and queens that we're going to talk about, or we've talked about so far. It's all about the succession. Who's going to be next?
It is.
And Henry has trouble. But before we do that, let's just talk a little bit about his sex life. Sex life is important for these kings.
It really is, because, as well, it's funny, someone said to me, everyone's always, worried about the sex lives of kings. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, realistically, the whole line comes from the ability to produce heirs, and when they are not produced, that's when problems can arise with infighting.
And nothing more important to any monarch than to have a successor, to have an heir and at least one spare, and preferably more. But of course, that gives you the other problem. That if you have too many siblings, then you will get the other problem, which we've talked about already today. Anyway, as it happens, Henry's married, and he produces 2 children with his first wife. A son and a daughter. A son, William, and a daughter, Matilda. In fact, every important woman at the time is called Matilda.
Called Matilda, it's funny, not many people know that Matilda is a royal name that comes up an awful lot, because it's not a recent one, it's the old ones, but
that's right. And so they're all called Matilda. So his wife is Matilda, his daughter is Matilda, his mother is Matilda. All Matildas are gathered. So he produces these 2 with his first wife. His second wife he takes quite late on in life and produces no children with her. But this is important because the heir, William, is a bit of a wild child, and he is partying quite hard in Normandy, near the port of Barfleur, and he decides that he's going to come back across the Channel to England. And I think we've got a little picture of that, Alice. There we go. Beautiful. We've got the white ship here.
Okay, well, I'm going to just change that over because you can see it a bit better.
Yeah, that's better. And William and, in fact, many members of the royal family, a number of his cousins and senior courtiers are all on board the ship. The story goes that they have a pretty heavy night before they embark. They're on the town in Barfleur, and most of them, including the captain, unfortunately, appear to be on the drunk side, and the ship hits a rock not far out of port. The ship sinks. There is one survivor, and unfortunately that survivor is not William. So we have trouble. And just back very briefly to Henry's sex life, Henry could
not that you're obsessed or anything.
Not that I'm obsessed, but he could not be more different to Rufus in that he is absolutely heterosexual, red-blooded.
He's a bit of a player, isn't he?
Bit of a player, has at least 21 illegitimate children. Now, I think that puts him quite high up the leaderboard in terms of illegitimate children fathered by kings and queens. Maybe we should have a quiz on that.
Maybe we should actually. We have a day of just doing
the most illegitimate children. So Henry's right up there, and however, so none of those, of course, can inherit. Which leaves him with his daughter, Matilda. Matilda gets to be there she is, brilliant. There she is. She is an empress in her own right. She's married to the Holy Roman Emperor, who dies, and Matilda is then married off to Geoffrey Plantagenet, of which more later on.
Yes.
But let's just get to the end of the story about Henry. So he ends up decreeing that Matilda should be his heir. And then he's off to France, where in November 1135, he's in one of his favourite castles, Saint-Denis-le-Formont, and he's there, and he's a bit peckish. Now, Henry decides he's going to eat, and one of the things that he likes to eat more than anything else is a lamprey, or in fact more than one lamprey. Here we go. Oh my God!
Let's do a better picture.
So disgusting.
Don't they look delicious?
They are so disgusting. They're somewhere between an eel and a leech, I suppose.
I mean, that's some serious kind of lockdown fodder if you get desperate, isn't it, really?
Oh my God, honestly, I'm going to have nightmares about these things. I've been looking at them all day. But Henry cannot get enough of them.
I think I've had some better looking dates than that, actually, to be fair.
Oh. So I couldn't possibly comment. So he says, right, bring me the lampreys, and they produce not one, not two, but famously a surfeit. A surfeit of lampreys is the phrase that's always used to describe Henry. Who knows how he eats them? I don't know. Fried with garlic. I hope fried with something, because they need a lot of help, you would think. A lot of bones, I would think, in those. Anyway, off he goes, he eats them, and very quickly he becomes ill. And so back to the Death of Kings. In the Death of Kings, it says that it's likely that he had a pre-existing condition. It might well be that the lampreys were slightly off, but if it was food poisoning, it was pretty severe and pretty quick.
It's bad oyster, isn't it, really?
Well, that's right. And the lampreys, probably with the addition of existing gastro problems, does for Henry, and that's it. He's dead. And he is taken to the coast, put on board a ship, and taken to eventually to Reading, no doubt with his doctors around him saying, I told him he shouldn't have had the lampreys. And that's it. So Henry is taken to Reading. So Henry has founded Reading Abbey, or rather been a huge benefactor of Reading Abbey. It's a colossal place. Very little of it survives today, mainly in ruins, but he's probably buried somewhere near the high altar. And in fact, we've got a touch of the Richard III's about Henry I, without mixing the kings too much. But he's one of those few kings that we're not exactly sure where he is. And I think there was a story, I think about 5 years ago, that they were going to do some archaeology at Reading Abbey to see if they could locate the king's body. I've not heard whether that happened or...
No idea. I haven't heard anything about that.
No, no doubt it will be hitting the headlines
almost certainly
when it does. So he's dead, and that's it. And we move on to the next king, possibly the next time, Alex.
To Matilda, actually, and then Stephen. And this is another example of when you don't have a specific heir popping up, there's, all hell breaks loose, and there's an absolute almighty bun fight for the crown. Now, I'm just going to scroll through quickly to see if there's any questions. I know Russell had a question. Were there any daughters from William the Conqueror?
Yes, he had a number of daughters, and most importantly, he has Adela. Adela is very important because it's through that line that we get to Stephen, the next king. So no doubt we'll talk about her for the next time.
Yeah, Catherine's asking we have a witchcraft session. Yeah, we'll put that on the list, not a problem at all. Any other questions? No, I think can't see any more questions. So we're going to leave it there, I think. Thank you so much for coming back, Richard.
Really good, enjoyed it.
It's been great, and someone has said here that it's really great, interesting hearing about what these more obscure monarchs. So yeah, thank you so much, and we will definitely carry on in a chronological order if that's
fantastic.
What we want. We'll do it, and there's a good story to kind of weave with all these different monarchs.
And again, Stephen is pretty obscure, and not much sort of mainstream history gets out there. So let's do Stephen. Looking forward to that. Maybe next time.
So I'll do him and Matilda together next week. So there we go. Before we go, at 4 o'clock, there is a fantastic talk over at 4 o'clock on Guide London, which is on Facebook, and it'll be on YouTube Live as well. And it's my wonderful colleague David Drury talking all about food in London. It's one of his big passions. So hop over there at 4 o'clock. I'll be logging on to watch that. And what else have we got coming up? No, I think that's everything from me. But that's about it, really. Thank you, everyone, for coming along.
Fantastic.
And thank you, Richard, for coming back and giving us more monarch history. And we'll see you next on Monarch Mondays. And tomorrow is interesting names in London and where the names come from. We're going to dig a little bit into some really cool history and find out a little bit more about where these odd street names come from. Thank you all. See you tomorrow at 3.